Hey, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, it's streaming.
Ever since Attorney Wilson is having real FOMO about this meeting. This is why attorneys get a bad reputation. This is the stuff we have FOMO about.
I'm gonna turn off my camera and mic for most of this, but if there's any time someone needs me to like jump in or answer a question, just shout out and I will unmute.
Okay.
Christina, do you want to quickly just share the agenda? Should I
Yes.
call in? I think I may call in for audio. Just told me my internet is unstable.
It says your internet is unstable.
Yeah, which it should not be, but I'll just pivot to dialing in if for some reason I don't have audio.
Okay.
Won't be the first time I'm using two devices for meeting.
I get that all the time, the unstable. You're
Yeah,
in.
I had that happen during a webinar that I was presenting. And I just like switched to my phone. I don't think people are just thought the screen froze for a second. I was like, well, that's, I guess, as good as you can hope for.
Also, Christina, I don't know if you got, I sent it today, the policy for the discussion piece about the policy review. I sent you a red line of our current policy, just
Thank
in
you.
case anyone wanted to see our current policy for like, you know, the discussion.
Okay. I can, yeah, Ruth, I can prepare to screen share that if you'd like. Or if it's just a discussion, you let me know.
Is it the revised policy you're mentioning, Erin, where you deleted that final highlighted paragraph?
No, it's for number 4, the policy review process. I had a red line of our
Oh,
current
okay.
policy about that, but it's it's not really ready for a first reading because we wanted feedback from the committee to inform our edits for the first
Mhm.
reading. But just in case anyone wanted to see the current policy, I sent that to Christina with like my proposed like what parts I think we should take out because they don't work.
Was it just to me or did you also send it to Ruth? If not, I'm sorry. I thought you did, so I'll forward. If not.
I think some people are still sending to me to the Hartford Public Schools email address that I actually don't check. I just check my Gmail. So I think last time, Ed Wilson sent something, it was to that email address. I
I sent
realized
it
when it
to the
was later forwarded to
Gmail.
me. So I
Yeah.
feel bad because people are sending the things. It's just,
Ruth, should we be using your Gmail? I think that's what I emailed
Yeah, it
today.
was the Gmail. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm gonna save it now and yep, now that I look at it, it looks good. Okay.
yes, I have your email, Erin. I have the attachment.
Okay, we have 3 board members. If you want to give it another minute, you let me know. Let me just save this in the meantime. I'm gonna
All
stop
right.
for a
Do you know how many
second.
people we're missing, Christina, if we get started?
Yeah, I mean, we should. It is 5:02. I know we
Okay,
have
we'll
like.
get started, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this policy committee meeting on this Monday, October 6th. My name is Ruth Fortune. I am the chair of the policy committee. And without any further ado, we'll jump right into our agenda. The first item for today is the second reading and adoption of the school volunteers policy. If you could just share that on the screen, Christina. So here's a red line of the changes to our existing volunteer policy. There's some revisions since the first reading at the general board meeting. Revisions to, in short, address some of the feedback and concerns that were brought up by parents to the board. Erin, would you like to jump in and summarize some of those revisions, or would you like me to do that?
I think actually Janelle might be able to speak to them because I know Janelle had worked on it. So,
Okay.
not to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you wanted to join in.
No, that's fine. Janelle, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I can quickly sort of summarize our discussion in the pre-policy committee and the changes. But yes, you're right. So Janelle, I know you worked on this more closely. So if you want to comment on that, you're welcome to.
Sure. So in an effort to ensure that we were following suggestions that were brought up or concerns that were brought up at the prior first reading meeting, we took a second look or a third look at the suggested areas of the policy that we were thinking to add, and we did add in the first paragraph information or lines to be able to ensure that the policy was a little more engaging to all and welcoming to all per comments that were brought up at the first meeting. So we added, as you can see in the red line, we added our school district deeply values the time, talents, and dedication of our volunteers whose generous contribution enrich our students' educational experiences and strengthen our school community as a direct response to those. We also made the modifications around including information on who are the target population that this policy would do reference, like who can be a volunteer. As you notice, we kind of did get rid of the second paragraph, but based on comments that were given at the first read, we did add language around what does regular volunteers mean and or include, which is the paragraph where you see that it may include, but it's not limited to, individuals that serve as chaperones and field trips, librarians, grandparents, supporting athletic events, etc. To be able to support that. There was also reference at the first meeting on the following paragraph that speaks to board policies. So the first iteration, we had a language around including adherence to all board policies, and we did the shift to included adherence to all applicable board policies as it was suggested during our first reading. And we also did add language around a appeal process, which was not on the first reading or the first iteration of this policy, where you can see that now we did add that the superintendent shall establish procedures for securing and screening volunteers. Applicants who are denied volunteer approval will be notified in writing and may request an appeal within 10 working days of the decision. Appeals will be reviewed by the Director of Security and or the District Safety Team Committee, and a final written determination will be provided within 10 working days, was also added there. We also did add, under the legal references, we did add legal reference to include coaching permits, just so that this component would also encompass individuals that are interested in providing or becoming coaching at our within our sport event, which would follow the exact same protocol and or procedures that we have here. And that will conclude the areas that we kind of did a shift. I think I mentioned all of them, Board Member Fortune.
Yes, thank you so much. In short, the team went and made some revisions, as Janelle said, to address some of the feedback and concerns that we received, including that change in that introductory paragraph to just make sure that the tone is clear, that we invite and we welcome volunteers, but obviously we need to do that in an organized fashion and make sure that we're screening properly. Do I have any questions from anyone in the meeting, board members wise? I don't see any hands raised. Member Mills?
Yes, I have a question about whether or not this applies to like large scale groups. So like if there were community partners that wanted to volunteer for events, would we have each individual person who wanted to volunteer apply for this, or do we treat that differently? Like if travelers wanted to help out for an event, would we have travelers do something? Would we have each person sign up? Like how does that work?
May I, Board Member Fortune?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we would approach this in two specific ways. We would be able to either do a MOU for the particular event, which would cover the totality of the organization. Or if we use the example that you have of travelers, if maybe travelers are coming in with 5 individuals or 6 individuals or what have you, then we would go the volunteer route for the support for a one-day event. We do utilize the MOU route more around events that will have more of a cadence or touch point with our students. So it's not a one-time thing, but they're coming in for consecutive sessions. We would go the MOU route. But if it's a big group, right, like maybe Travelers is bringing 25 volunteers, 30 volunteers, instead of doing this volunteer process, we would do the MOU with a one-day event where Travelers is able to tell us that they are doing the background check and give us all the specification that we're looking for in alignment with the language that's here.
Would it be possible to, I know like we're adding other things, but would it be possible to add something about that, saying that there is a caveat for those types of situations in this policy? I would just hate for like farther down the line for someone to read this policy and just be like, nope, we don't have anything in here stated. So like if there is a workaround for larger groups like that, I think somewhere in this we should say that, you know, for large groups, see other policy, you know, detailed here or something like that. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know.
I can do that.
Thanks.
Board Member Walker?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so Director, this was a great presentation on the changes. So I have one, I guess, point of clarification or maybe just a question. Like on those one-off events, like someone being chaperone on a trip, is there ever a process to waive or expedite that situation, or to get the background check done in an expedited way? I somehow thought in the dialogue that was going on, there are situations where someone is like been called and, you know, is been asked to be a chaperone with maybe only a couple days notice or something like that, or a parent decides that they have capability and availability to be a chaperone. Is there an expedited process for that one-off situation, or is it still just the same process of just maybe explain that how that would work, or what did you kind of hear in that, dialogue that occurred?
So because the screening of individuals coming in to be a volunteer, working with our students is utilizing or following a background check, right? That we do with an organization. The amount of time or the length of time that it takes, it depends on the individual that is applying and their status. We do get back reports within a matter of hours, and we do get back reports that take a few days. What I've noticed in terms of trends and patterns with reports that take a little longer are for individuals that the report is coming back with a history of interactions with the law, that then it took a little longer for the system to pick up all of those pieces. So in that particular case, I wouldn't be able to expedite a screening without bypassing a background, because I have to follow the background check system, which is doing a thorough screening on individuals. And that is not something that myself or anyone on my team would be able to bypass.
Okay, thank you for that. If I can follow up quickly, Chair. I think what I thought I was hearing is that there are circumstances where maybe someone can't go on a scheduled field trip, and so then they call up a parent or somebody to kind of backfill. So are we saying that in that situation, that backup person has to already be pre-screened, or is that how that would always work then for that you get my point? I thought I heard someone give that example.
I do get your point. And in that particular case, what we decided to do or shift that's new this school year is FCSSPs are now on a weekly basis providing to the front desk or the front office of the school, as well as administrators, is providing them with an up-to-date list on a week-by-week basis, so that the front desk as well as the administrators know who have already gotten approved by this background check, so that everyone has that information.
Okay, so now I get it. So it doesn't have to be in the policy, but you're saying in practice, there's going to be this, that's right, a real-time list that somebody's going to own and keep updated. I knew there was something discussed there.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then just going back on the question that Board Member Mills had, on the administrative regulations is where I see that we have more of that, not as clear, but we can add there, because that's the process that we have in terms of bigger groups and or smaller groups. Would we still, I mean, it's already in the regulations. Do I need to have a language on the policy itself?
I guess, and through you, Madam Chair, but if actually, I think I would ask Ruth that question. Like, you're a lawyer. Like, do you think we would, I don't know, I almost feel like it would still be beneficial to have just a line that said, for larger groups, please see policy here. But like, I don't know. I'm not as familiar with these types of legal issues. Like, I'm just afraid that like further down the line, someone might try with the group to apply for this, and someone who wasn't in this meeting won't remember that that's an option. So
I got it.
I mean, I personally am comfortable with the process being spelled out in the administrative regulations, not necessarily in the policy, as we do with a lot of other policies, where we just spell out more of the details, as we'll discuss with the next policy that's coming up. But it's, if somebody feels strongly to have it in here, I'm not opposed to it either.
Gotcha.
I see some other hands. We'll go first with Board Member Darius Ledger, and then Board Member Brody.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I just had a statement more than a question. I wanted to say that safety and security is the priority, should be the number one priority of our students. And I would also perhaps encourage, parents or caregivers to sign up to be a chaperone or a volunteer, in the beginning of the school year, or, even though you don't know if you'll have an opportunity to be a chaperone or be a volunteer, sign up, sign up at before the opportunity arises, because like for myself, I always have this motto where, you know, stay ready or be ready so you don't have to get ready, um, I'm really, passionate about parents being able to be there for their children, because those are memories. Those are awesome memories that are made when they're able to go apple picking with their child on a school trip, or to a school play, or something, or even to be able to come and read to their child or the other children. But I would encourage folks to just sign up, and do the background check ahead of time, so that it's not something that that you have to think about when the opportunity does come up.
Thank you, Board Member Darcella Ledger. Board Member Brody?
Hi, not a really, well, more just an agreement about referencing in one policy to reference another policy. I agree with Madam Chair in the regards of not more so, because we would be doing that with all, like we would be setting a precedence to be doing that, because a lot of policies you could find something that maybe is in another policy. So the way you described it, I think was perfect.
Thank you. So more of an add-on on the administrative regulations. Which is there.
Thank you. Board Member Mills?
No, I just want to say that seems sufficient to me. If everyone here thinks that it's covered enough, and we should just trust Janelle to know what she's doing. So
Okay.
I'm cool.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up on this agenda item. Just going through my list here. Okay, seeing no further comment. Christina, I think we should move to have this placed for the second reading at the next board meeting. Just for everyone's information, one of the parents who did email about this policy and had very thoughtful, detailed feedback could not make today's meeting. And she has requested delaying the vote. It seems prudent to go ahead and adopt a policy. I believe we've considered a lot of her feedback. If she comes back with more substantive feedback, we could always revisit and further amend this policy. But if as a body we feel we should just hold the vote and just wait for more input, I'm open to that as well. What's the general sense? By a show of hand, I guess, who thinks we should hold until we get more feedback? Or if you think we should hold this and not take it for a vote at the next meeting, do you mind just like raising your hand just so I can get a feel for where we stand? Okay.
Just to
I don't see any hands.
rehash,
If you
we're voting on postponing it.
I just want to see where we stand. Do you think we should postpone the vote until we get more feedback from the parent who provided feedback and wants to bring additional feedback? If you think we should postpone the vote, if you could just show me by a show of hand. I just want to do what the collective group prefers. Okay, you think we should postpone? All right, Board Member Mills. Okay, does everyone else, do the rest of us, do we think we should just proceed with taking the vote and then revising further if needed based on her feedback? If you raise your hand if you don't want to postpone.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could voice in, I would proceed. I believe a terrific effort was done to incorporate a lot of the feedback, and it feels like it deserves to move forward. Yeah, so much of the feedback is incorporated. I would proceed.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Brody, did you want to add to that?
No, I was raising my hand. You said raise your hand if you thought it should go
Okay,
forward.
so proceed. Okay. All right, Christina, it seems like, at least for now, there's more in favor of just proceeding with the vote, but welcome Miss Angelica Maddox's input. If she has further feedback that we think we want to further incorporate, we certainly can do that.
Okay.
The next item, first reading, is a protection of undocumented students. Christina, if you'd kindly share that. So this was added to the agenda at my request. Oh, do we have the red line version?
If I may, there was no red line because this is a new policy. So this is just new based on the CABE model, but there's no actual red line.
I thought I saw one with some red lines at the pre-policy with some languages that we were tweaking.
That was edited from the CABE model, but this is to bring forward a brand new policy. So there's no red line from an existing policy.
Okay, so this is already with those changes adopted.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Got it. So this is the one. Okay, all right. So this policy is dealing with undocumented students. Essentially, what the district's approach is to dealing with law enforcement, particularly ICE and other law enforcement when it comes to entering our schools. In short, can we scroll to that key paragraph, Christina, that reads in terms of if any member of the district, let's see. Now there's another paragraph. Aaron, do you remember that discusses essentially that the stance is to be protective of students? Yes, I think that's the paragraph, this first one here. Right, so this paragraph, I think, captures the spirit of this. Sorry, the one that starts with "it is the general policy of the district to not allow any individual or organization to enter a school site if the educational setting would be disrupted by that visit." The Board of Education believes that ICE activities in and around schools, preschool education centers, and adult school facilities would constitute a severe disruption to the learning environment and educational setting for students. Therefore, any request by ICE to any district personnel to visit a school site shall be immediately forwarded to the superintendent for review and consultation with legal counsel to ensure the safety of all students, as well as compliance with Flyer v. Doe and other applicable state and federal laws. I am particularly, as I'm sure all of you are, concerned about the aggressive and unlawful tactics that ICE is using to enter, all sorts of spaces. And, the goal is to have a very comprehensive policy followed by protocols and procedures to ensure that we're not letting anyone into our buildings unless they've been screened. And to the extent that it's an ICE agent, they need a warrant that's signed by a federal judge. So further, there's 4 people who are stipulated as the people we need to call on site if anyone is trying to enter our school buildings. And those are the only 4 people who will review any warrant and interact with ICE more directly. So SSOs are trained on this. I believe FCSSPs, I always mix up those letters, are also trained on some of this. Aaron, would you like to add a little bit more color to what I've shared before we take questions from anyone, any board members?
I can. What I will add is that we also have Pete Bergenholtz here. He is our Director of Labor Relations and a former Hartford police officer. And so he's able to speak if anyone has specific questions about the sort of regulations involved in whether or not to allow ICE in, who's checking the warrant, like those sorts of questions. He's the expert in that matter. But in general, this is basically to have a policy in place, but the regulations in terms of what we actually do, those are already in place. There was already a memo, that has gone out in the past about what our response is. And so those sorts of details do not and exist in the policy itself, because we already have like a pretty clear set of instructions that is separate from this. And so that's sort of the overall theme before anyone has any questions.
I think you're muted, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Do you want to add anything to that, Pete, before we take any questions from board members?
Yeah, sure. So in addition to the principals and the FCSSPs, our security officers have been trained with our regulations. With that, they've all been instructed to contact either Staff Attorney Edward Wilson, Security Director Daryl Roberts, or myself in the event that ICE does show up at one of our facilities. We will be contacted and respond immediately to interact with the agents and determine what they are looking for and determine what type of paperwork they have, whether it's an administrative warrant or, as you said, a judicial warrant that's signed by a judge. Two different things. There is if I can give you a little history, Connecticut's has had a protocol in place as early as 2017, anyhow. Governor Malloy issued some guidance to superintendents of all school districts on what to do should ICE respond. He updated that again in January, I believe, of this year, 2025, where he reissued that guidance with a little bit more directions in that. We follow with our regulations that guidance from the state, which is also very similar to what CABE has put out. Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez issued a memorandum back in, I want to say January of 25 with our first guidance on this, and it has been since reissued by Dr. Townsell in August of 25. So we have had this regulation in place for a better part of a year now, coming up on a year.
Thank you. I'll open it up to board members for questions at this time. Anyone else who has questions? I'll start with Board Member Brody, then Board Member Walker. Board Member Brody? I'm sorry, are you able to hear me? I don't hear anything. Do we?
You were cutting off a little bit, but
You can hear me now?
no.
Now we can hear you.
I think I hit the mute myself.
Okay.
I am not, personally, I'm not comfortable with us having regulations and procedures. I think we need to be as specific as possible in this policy. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Board Member Walker?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to follow up with Pete. I don't know your title exactly, but you laid out the chain of different policies at the state and district level, and I was going to bring up too. It feels like I've seen this policy before, and you clarified it was a memo, and then there was a directive from the governor. And my question, I guess, through Pete or to the group is, if we adopt this policy, is this going to supersede the memo? And so are we going to retire the other versions of the document just to have it be clear that there's one place to go to get the directions for what to do in the, with an interaction with ICE? It feels for me better if we have just one source for the directive. And right now I feel like there's 2 or 3. The memo, there's and then what the governor or even occasionally the mayor puts out in this area.
All right, thank you for that. So I'll just clarify that the state's directives that came out from Governor Malloy back in 2017 and again issued in 2025 from Governor Lamont. Those were guidance that were issued to the districts. The district has since adopted its own. Again, that was initially back in January of 25, and then it was reissued by Dr. Townsell in August of 25. As far as what's in there, the regulation or the guidance that we're putting out identifies specific personnel who are on staff within the Hartford Public School District to respond to ICE. I don't know that we would necessarily want that within the policy, so I appreciate what you're saying as far as putting as much information in the policy as possible. But I think the regulations are pretty clear, and I hope I answered your concern.
So yeah, Chair, if I can quickly follow up. So what you're saying is this policy will be the definitive policy. You're saying the memo from Dr. Townsell will then become a regulation, and then the responsible party would know to go to the regulation for their action in executing the policy. Is that how you're seeing it working?
Yes, sir. And this has been shared with all the school administrators at this point, so they're familiar with that.
Okay, all right. That I'm satisfied that the responsible people will know what regulation to go to. The rest of us would just go to the policy and start from there. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Board Member Brody?
I'm trying to understand what are we saying. So I want to be clear on what I said. So policy should be strong, and that's where you get your regulations or procedures from. You can't have regulations stronger than a policy. Like, it should be, in my opinion, in that direction. So from policy, people create all the other things to make sure the policy is carried out. And that's the reason why I'm saying that it should be as strong and clear. And so there's no room interpretation. We're talking about potential, like we've heard in other towns, right? Students, we could possibly never see the student ever again. So this isn't something we should be soft or no misinterpretation. It should be strong and it should be in the policy. So I don't know if we take a look at this regulation to see what that says. We can't leave any room for interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Darcel Ledger?
Thank you. I just wanted to, say it's more of a comment than a question, but and perhaps it might even be a question. Should we adopt this policy, if you will? Things are constantly changing. Circumstances are constantly, perhaps evolving. And should there be some type of update to, what the governor says, what the powers that be say, if you will? I want to make sure that, we are on top of this as new information comes in, so that if something needs to be amended or updated, that this is more of a living document than, this is etched in stone, this is how it's going to be, because things are changing. So I just want to make sure that there are constantly, eyes on this policy, if you will. And also, if there is some type of training, if you will, for staff for anyone who will be interacting with these individuals who come in, who are coming to, you know, deal with or take children, or even staff members, if or even parents. But I just want to make sure that there's some type of formal training, professional learning, so that people know how to respond and they know how to conduct themselves, so that so no one puts themselves in any type of unnecessary danger.
Chair, if I may answer part of that.
Sure, please go ahead.
I'll just say something quickly to address the first part, and then I think, Pete, maybe you can address the training part, because I know you've been involved in that. But the first part about I think that in looking at CABE's model policy and making sure that it fit our district, this is pretty close to the CABE model policy. That's actually something we were really trying to keep in mind, is the fact that this is an area in which there may be changing guidance. Things may change quickly. Something may happen and we need to move rather quickly. And which is why, I think we're very conscious of that when not including a lot of the details in the policy and making it say, like, the general policy is we don't allow them to enter the school. Period. That's kind of what the policy says. And then within the regulations, okay, now we need to get into the things that may change about warrants and who to go to. Like, that's why I think the regulations are a bit more of that living document that you're talking about. And so I just want to acknowledge that, like, I think we all agree and we're trying to keep that in mind. And I think that's also why CABE had a more general model policy, and then, like, the regulations spell out more. And Pete, I don't know if you want to talk about the training.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the training part, the schools are access controlled, and when people do arrive at the schools, they meet a security officer at that front door. All of our security officers have been trained on how to respond if ICE does show up on their campus, as had the school administrators and all FCSSP members. So the training is taking place with those personnel who would be interacting, or maybe interacting or receiving some type of inquiries about ICE.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this policy? In the pre-policy discussion that we had last Friday, I kind of walked away still feeling like I'm still not comfortable telling, I was undocumented myself as a child. Knowing our policy and the procedure we have in place, I still would not be comfortable showing up to school, because I would still feel like there's such a possibility that ICE could still enter the schools. Pete, I know you weren't at that last meeting. Can you walk me through how, because the first line of defense are the SSOs, buzzing people in. Attorney Wilson did go through that, and I still feel like it has some reservations. What is that training that they're receiving, and how are we certain that they would not be letting an ICE officer in? Because I think if there's the mistake made that an ICE officer enters the premises, at that point, all bets are off. The idea that we're only training the SSOs and the FCSSBs and some of the administrators, I think it could trickle down to the classroom teachers, because they could go and grab kids from anywhere. Like, we're seeing that they don't care about the rule of law, and they're just operating and doing everything as if there's no due process and there's no constitution, or immigrants don't have any rights. So can you talk more about what that training entails, and how it seems like you're comfortable with that process, and what makes you comfortable with it?
So
And then Board Member Darrisaw.
yeah, absolutely. So I'll speak at the personal level because of my former experience as a law enforcement officer. I don't believe any of these officers will have any ill intention, and if they're asked to stand by while an administrator or Attorney Wilson or myself or Director Roberts are called to respond, I believe they would do so. I don't believe that they're just going to show up at the schools unannounced, but in the event they do, again, our school security officers have been trained. Just like with any other visitor at the building, they're not going to just let them into the building and give them free access to that facility. The officers have been trained with this protocol. They know that when an ICE officer shows up, that they are going to contact the school administrator, let him or her know that there's an ICE agent on their campus, and then they're going to immediately contact myself, Director Roberts, or Attorney Wilson. And these are federal officers. They do have law powers of arrest. So definitely, I don't think it's going to turn into a confrontational situation when they're showing up.
I'll pause my questions. Thank you. Board Member Darcel Ledger, then Board Member Walker. Board Member Darcel Ledger.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to unmute. I don't know what happened. No, I just wanted to say, with regards to something that you said about, parents or students worried about coming to school, or and not knowing if they're if someone's going to show up and try to take them. Well, I would say everyone is not everyone, but there are many people who are afraid and who are concerned, who may meet that criteria, if you will, or possibly meet that criteria. So, it is we are living in uncertain times, and, people are going to do what they feel they need to do to keep their children safe. So if there is a fear that, ICE may show up or maybe in the area or something like that, that can affect attendance, because people want to remain safe. So I just wanted to state that, because I've seen that I've talked to parents who are worried, and who have decided to either relocate or not have their children in school because of the fear of ICE showing up, because they are taking people who are citizens, and that's a whole other conversation for another time. But at the end of the day, parents are going to do what they feel they need to do to keep their children safe and keep their families together.
Chair, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Board Member Walker. Thank you, Board Member Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I think you were recognizing me. I wanted to emphasize that the policy, as we are reading it here and along with our regulation, emphasizes that we will comply with the law. And in saying that, if an ICE person shows up with a judicial warrant, a warrant that identifies that they've gone through the rule of law process, then they may gain access. And so that's, so there can be no guarantee that ICE will never ever come. What I think the policy is trying to say is that we will assure to the best of our abilities that the rule of law is followed by asking and demanding a judicial warrant versus an administrative warrant. And so I just wanted just be clear that that's what the policy is saying, and there can be no guarantees other than we're going to make sure that the rule of law is followed to the best of our ability.
I think that is accurate. Board Member Brody?
Thank you. So I felt more confident prior to the comment that was made that we're actually thinking ICE is going to do the right thing. If I don't know the capability of each school to know who's ringing the buzzer. I'm not even comfortable with them coming in until the right people who can examine this warrant and do all. I'm not comfortable with them even stepping in the building. So if we're trained to open the door, let them in. Oh, that's not realistic. I don't know if we are naive with the intent and some of the lawlessness actions of ICE. So I'm uncomfortable if we're just letting them in, because at that moment there is nobody listed per this regulation as on site. So I don't know. I think we have some other discussing to do, if that's what we're doing. And if we think ICE has good intent and will follow the law and might not show up. And I don't think we're being realistic here. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Board Member Brody. Before I acknowledge Board Member Darcel Ledger, so I will say I requested that we discuss this particularly because I think I have observed over the past 9.5 months of this administration that there is a disconnect between what they say, what they do, and how some people choose to interpret those words, right? I don't think it's a matter of if personally. I think it's a matter of when. You don't get to deport tens of millions. And if our policy is grounded in the idea that like they will use some type of restraint or feel like they're compelled to follow the rule of law, I think we're planning for failure. So I am greatly concerned about this. That said, the policy, that paragraph that we've discussed, I think it gives us the ability to really plan, but the protocol and the procedures we have in place and the administrative regulations, they don't actually do what I think they need to do to have enough teeth to protect students. So yes, I welcome a longer discussion. I think we need to look at every policy that deals with dealing with ICE and law enforcement officials. So yeah, I'm greatly concerned about it. I will acknowledge Board Member Darrell.
Oh, sorry.
Did you want to respond first?
It sounded like part of that was a question about, I heard a question about like, will the SSOs just let them in and now they're in the building, what do they do? And I just wanted to specifically say that in the guidance that our previous superintendent and our current superintendent have sent out. So this is the protocol that was updated most recently, I think in August. It goes through the steps that you do before the ICE agent would be allowed into the school. So this is, if people are following what they are trained to follow, the theoretically, if an ICE agent showed up at the school and pressed the buzzer to gain entrance, there's a list of things that the person needs to do before they would be allowed into the building. So I understand that this is a really, really sensitive, difficult topic, and it's very scary for a lot of people. And so I don't want to minimize that. I know that there is legitimate fear about what do we do if they do get into the building, but just I do want to say that there are things that are supposed to happen before they would even be allowed in the building, including one of the three designees that have been identified to examine if there is a warrant, to examine the warrant, would physically go to the school. So they would physically go to the school, look at the warrant, read the warrant, there's questions they would ask the ICE agent in terms of what is it that what are you asking for? What are you here to do? And they would need to say, we have a warrant to enter the school. Like that would be a discussion that happens at the school before they're allowed in. So I want to frame this in terms of if everyone is if everything is working how it should, this is something that would not be happening in the building where there is access to kids. So I just wanted that to be really clear.
Thank
If
you,
I,
Erin. I forget which order I said at this point, so please go ahead and
You said me.
whatever the order. I think there's like
Yes.
then go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. So I just wanted to say this. As an educator, as someone who has encountered this situation before and continue to encounter that, I will say that I'm hoping like what I would like to know, since Ms. Wilson, you said that there are a series of steps that need to take place. It was that you who said that? I think, oh, right? Okay. I would like to,
Go ahead.
know what those steps are. I would like to know if there's, once they hit that buzzer, they identify themselves, if they identify themselves, which they should. Is there what happens in the building? Is there a secure hold a hold in place that takes place so that everyone is in their classrooms, or in a secure area with the doors locked, so that we know where everyone, or whoever the designee is, whoever the administrator is, whoever's in charge in the building knows where every child is, so that once these individuals enter the building, they can't just start snatching children or snatching staff or whatever. Are the hallways going to be completely empty, completely clear, so that you know they're able to see the hallways clear and empty? But at the end of the day, we want to keep our children safe and not bring out any stress, anxiety, or anything like that. This is a very uncertain time that we are in, and yes, we need to follow the law. Yes, we need to keep everyone safe, including our staff, because we also don't need, that's why the training is so critical, because we don't need anyone, I don't want to say trying to be a hero or trying to say, I'm going to do this. We need to follow the law. But as, Board Chair Brody mentioned, we need to be crystal clear on what steps need to be followed. But I'm really interested in knowing what the steps are when an agent arrives to the school. And not only yes, we have someone come to the school and physically lay eyes on this warrant, but also what steps are being taken in the building, on the school property. And also, should this happen, what kind of I would say emotional, what kind of, I'd say wellness, but what kind of trauma, attention, therapy, if you will be provided, because what type of SEL will be provided, because this can be a trigger for a lot of children and staff.
Thank you, Board Member Darrisaw-Ledger, Board Member Mills, and then Board Member Walker. Maybe we'll skip ahead to Board Member Walker. Board Member Mills is back. Go ahead. Board Member Mills.
Sorry, I had to open the door. I'm still at work. I just want to point out that I feel like we might not that this isn't important enough for us to have this conversation, but I think that we all have a lot of concerns about the specific policy that might be more than about this specific policy. Like sort of what Aaron said, that if this policy is only about the people about letting ICE into buildings, I feel like this policy in itself that speaks to that specific thing is necessary and probably good enough for that specific thing. That's not to say that we shouldn't maybe have a different policy that incorporates all the other stuff, but like this specific policy does one specific thing. And I don't necessarily think, like, I think that this part is fine. And I think we might be going a little bit off topic with a lot of the other discussions. And that's not to say that those conversations don't have to happen, but I don't think that's for this specific policy. So I don't know if the answer is to extend this policy to cover all of those things or just focus on this policy and write another one. But I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about are not really about this specific policy. And I just want to point out, like, to Chairperson Brody's point, like, I also don't trust ICE to follow the rules at all. So, like, I just want to, like, be very clear on that. But I think that this policy in itself does one specific thing, and I think we might be losing that a little bit. That's all.
Thank you. Board Member Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add to what Board Member Mills said, that as I understand this policy and the administrative memo that came previously, this policy is pretty clear, and so I thought was that memo. The concerns that are being expressed here does elevate the need for us to walk the process. And this is a rare situation where, based on the questions with that and the concerns being expressed, that I think the administrator needs to spend some time with us to go through that lower level administrative detail that will really help clarify, because the policy is just saying what we're going to do. The how we do it and the detailed steps are not going to be in the policy, but I totally get everyone's concern because they don't see it, and they're not going to be comfortable with the policy unless they know the details of how it's going to be executed. And I'm just offering that beyond this moment, I think a session should be set up where we really go through the details of the protocol steps, how it actually happens, where ICE is going to be, where they're held, who actually does the checks, who has to sign off, so we can really feel comfortable that this policy, as it's being implemented and executed, will provide the protections for people that we intend. And then, I'm just laying that out there, that because further discussion on this is not going to clarify that. I think we need to have further time to really go through the details to be clear. And I think those details are there, not in this policy, but I think in the administrative documents that have been talked about in the past, some of those details were included. And so I'm just throwing it out there that we should have a session, maybe go through that. And that would help us feel better about what this policy itself is trying to achieve, and that it will be adequate in concert with the administrative regulations and then the details behind it. And I guess before I end, can someone like Pete or Aaron take that action to kind of help set that up for us so we can have that time?
Yeah, I can bring that to the team. And just related to that, and we're getting into a little bit of the weeds past the policy. And I hope it didn't come across that I was implying that we would just buzz a door open and let anyone in. We do have security processes in place at all of our schools. All those doors remain locked. That's our policy. We do have doorbell cameras at our buildings where the officers can, or officer staff can lay eyes on the person who's at the door and have a communication with them. Some of our schools, as we update, we considered to be a man trap where there's two sets of doors that have to be opened and shut at different points before anyone could even get access into the main part of the building. But before anyone, if a building does not have that, they are screened at the doorbell before that door does come open. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I will bring that to the team to
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think it will be helpful to not only just see this, but also all the related administrative regulations, protocols, everything at once. I received some guidance from partners who work in this space in terms of what districts that, have implemented a really good process, what they've done. It includes things like training for all staff, whereas I know for us, we're not doing training for all staff. We're only limiting it to people we think are involved. But I think in a crisis situation, it may involve anyone in the school building. So yeah, I think a comprehensive review of all of the related policies and regulations and so on is warranted, because what's at stake is literally students' safety and their ability to be with their families and be safe and not be detained or deported to a third country or some other country. So that would be great. But I thank you all for your participation and input. I appreciate that. Janelle, did you want to add something? I think I saw your hand up at one point.
I did. I've been going back and forth. Do I say it? Do I not say it? I just want to raise all of us to be aware that so we did the training and we continue to do the training, but as we ensure that everybody do exactly what the training stipulates that we should do, there may be an increase on either family or community complaint on their process to enter a building. Meaning, if we really stick to the T and everybody stays outside and we wait for security to screen them through a camera, not necessarily they're walking in, like as board members, you may get an increased complaint of community members and or families sharing that they feel like it's a little less available for them to just enter any of our buildings. And I just wanted to bring that to our attention, because I know on my end, I am pushing for people to follow the training to the T, like not just letting people, if I'm walking in, anyone walk in with me into the building, because you never know who's coming in with you, just to make sure that those pieces are really followed. I wanted to just mention that here.
Thank you for highlighting that. Yes, I think there is a bit of a trade-off, if you will. If we're being very strict in the front end, it applies to everyone, and it might just not be as sort of user-friendly to the parents and people familiar with the schools who are entering in and out and wanting to get in. Yeah, I mean, the risk is so high in this case that I feel like this is one of those trade-offs that probably is worth it. But yeah, I would love to engage in further discussion about this. So thank you all. I appreciate it. I don't see any other hands. I don't think. Okay. So maybe it still makes sense to bring this for the first reading, Christina, and then we'll have time to review all the other related policies before we bring this for a second reading and make additional changes if we want to. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
Or-
All right,
Sorry,
perfect.
I don't know if you're asking me that or the board.
Yeah, I think we can do the first reading and because we still have an opportunity to make revisions and review the rest of the, administrative regulations, protocols, and so on. All right, moving on to items for the regular meeting. It's the second reading and adoption of policy 5141.7, student sports concussion, and student and sudden cardiac arrest, policy 5141-28.28 rather.
I could just say that I have not received any further comments or concerns from board members or the community, nor the community.
Okay. All right, if I don't have any questions on this or anyone else have any questions, we could proceed. Okay, seeing no questions, we'll just move on to second reading and adoption at the next general meeting. Final item is a discussion of the automatic policy review process. So we have a policy about how we review policies and and modify policies. Christina's going to share. So Erin, I believe, and Ed brought this to our attention in terms of how we want to proceed with the ongoing review of policies, adoption of policies, and I'll pass it over to you, Erin.
Sure. So as we were, I'll try to very briefly frame this in terms of how this even came up. You know, at the end of the summer, we spent some time going through just, we have a lot of policies and just looking at how to make a game plan for what policies we're going to address this school year. We were looking at policies that haven't been reviewed in a very long time, and this is actually one of them. This policy is over 20 years old, and so it's time to look at it anyway. And we were looking at all policies that are over 20 years old, and we were realizing it just doesn't seem like what this policy reflects is what we actually do. And so we took a first pass at like a bit of a red line on it, but it's not up for a first reading because we really, this is the policy committee. It's you all that are going through this process. And so we wanted feedback from you before we try to like further edit this policy. There were some of the things that we highlighted as potentially problematic. One is that essentially it says that policies will be revised every 2 years on even numbered years in groups of 2 by series, which if I if I piece through what that really means, it sounds like we're supposed to, on even numbered years, go through 2 groups by series, like maybe the 4000 series and the 2000 series. If that's the case, it's going to take us, 18 years or whatever to get through. It just doesn't seem like that's the cadence that would necessarily work for our district. And it doesn't seem to be what we've done, at least in the couple years I've been starting to get involved in this. So that's one piece that needs to be addressed. The other is there is language in here about the policy manual. And, when we pass new policies, when the board approves them, then they need to be like given to the policy manual holders. And I think that's sort of this archaic, this was first written in 99, when I think someone physically had a book of policies, and we haven't done that in a long time. It's all published on our website. And so it just needs an overhaul in terms of making policies available on our website instead of like binders, but also just getting feedback in terms of, one suggestion was maybe when the board passes a policy that there actually be, when we say, the date that it was passed, a cadence in terms of when it's going to be reviewed. The suggestion maybe 2 years, maybe for certain policies it can be longer, but so we know this was passed, for example, 2025 will be reviewed 2027. So we at least know going forward when policies are going to be up for review. So, I know that's sort of general. There's a lot to that, but any feedback you have in terms of how you want policies to be identified that need to be updated, because a lot are quite old, and that doesn't mean they're out of date. It just means that they need to be reviewed.
Thank you for that summary. Any questions or comments on any of that?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Board Member Walker. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Erin, this is right in my wheelhouse. My background's in quality management, or at least the latter portion of my career within that. And so I too feel like complex organizations need kind of like a quality manual, some kind of quality plan. And in that would be some cadence in which we will review our policies. In a lot of cases, there may not even be a change to a policy, but just somebody that has some responsibility put eyeballs on something. Because it is worrisome to see policies 20 years and no one's kind of looked at it in 20 years per se. The in my lived experience, we need to be wise as well as dedicated here. We need to pick a cadence where we won't be out of process, and like 2 years is too often. So I mean, excuse me. I don't know if you're excuse me. I don't know if your team is going to take initial shot at coming up with what's our total universe of policies and what makes sense in terms of a type of review cadence, and then maybe have that be something we can kind of mark up. So I don't know what approach you want to take, but I certainly would be willing to support you and help you on this journey. This is one that I did want to fix myself, that I do feel like we need to have some cycle which we at least read our policies to make sure they still reflect what we think it was trying to accomplish.
Board Member Walker.
That's the end of my comment. I'm sorry. I'm just supporting this initiative. Be willing to help on this initiative, and maybe suggesting that Aaron, your team maybe draft an initial approach. I'd be willing to support you and just come up with some draft, and then to me, start from there. Someone needs to come up with a draft. Is what I'm saying. I don't think we can effectively just round robin this through a committee meeting.
You are muted, board member. Fortune.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think Ms. Brody
It's been
has
a long day.
Are you raising
Thank you all for your input. Any further comment from anyone? Okay, seeing none.
Can I ask? I'm sorry, I dropped off.
Sure.
May I
Go
have like
ahead.
a 30-second? Because I'm assuming we switched policies. Is it realistic to get a 30-second brief on what we're looking at now? If not, I can ask, because is this like just the first, is it going to be a first read? Or
This is just for discussion. Are you talking about the how we modify policies, this fourth agenda item?
yes.
This is really just for a discussion, so that we have a plan for ongoing review of our policies. And if we don't need to really closely review, then at least we just sort of calendar the next time we take a look and just move along.
Okay, was there a problem expressed about what we're looking at now?
I can give a very, very short, I had said one of the things, so we had identified, this is outdated. This policy itself about how we do our policies is more than 20 years old. So a couple things just about referencing physical manuals that we don't use. Everything's online now. And just the cadence that's identified here about the board on even numbered years, reviewing series by 2. And it's just a process that we don't actually use. And so we would like to just basically write a new process for what we really do and what looks realistic. And so, we were just opening for discussion if there was anything that anyone felt really should be or should not be part of that, as we kind of write a first draft of how we're going to revise policies, especially those that are quite old and just need, as board member Walker said, just need eyes on to say whether or not, yep, this is good or not. And then, sort of check it off that we at least looked at it.
Okay, I do want to express that. Thank you for that. That as this red line is presented today, I am in support of those updates.
Thank you. Board Member Darcel Ledger.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm interested to see or hear what perhaps CABE might what insight they might be able to offer, because I'm sure that they deal with because they deal with other other districts who may have dealt with this situation in the past. I'd like to see what they if they may have some suggestions or recommendations.
Thank you. Board Member Darcel Ledger. All right, I don't see any other hands raised. So this was for discussion. Thank you for all the comments. I believe Erin took some good notes and will follow up with us. She's been very diligent with bringing things to our attention, and we look forward to continuing that work. Seeing no other questions, I think this concludes today's meeting. And I'll see some of you tomorrow at so tomorrow is the ceremony for the renaming of Classical. So if anyone's able to attend, 10:30 at Classical Magnet, please feel free to join. Looking forward to it.